at it again, baby. Ew, allergies. Hi, I am TAZZY, and welcome to me alone on the floor in my living room. Again. I apologize for my lack of makeup. It is like seriously allergy season out here. Like, she's not joking around. Allergies are here. The pollen is here. Get ready. When this entire COVID-19 situation really started getting rolling and people started shutting down borders was about the time that I finished my remote work job. So when I returned home, I was self-quarantining for 14 days, and in that time, I discovered an anime on Netflix called Beastars, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Apart from the furry nonsense, it is such a beautiful coming to age story. It's ridiculous. So I thought that to dip my toes back into reading manga, this would be a good place to start. Let's start today. Volume 1. Beastars, Volume 1, the manga. Let's go! This series was written and illustrated by Paru Itagaki, which I actually found out is the daughter of the writer of Baki, which is the most extreme fist-fighting anime I think I've ever seen in my life. I thought that I would go through by chapter and just kind of explain what happens in my thoughts on each chapter, and then I want to talk about the characters a little bit at the end, so indulge me. Chapter 1 was called Introduction Upon the Full Moon. So this chapter is where Tem gets attacked. So Tem is an alpaca, I believe, and the manga starts with him being chased by a shadowy, presumably carnivore figure and attacked and killed. Tem is a total badass throughout this. He's like, you carnivores are all the same. Flashes forward to the present day where students are finding out that Tem has been murdered and suspecting their carnivore classmates, and it just kind of paints the setting of this world that Paru has created. So in this world, there are herbivores and carnivores, and there is a natural divide between them. It has been made illegal for carnivores to eat meat. Instead of eating meat, they eat mostly animal byproducts for protein, from what I have seen in the anime/manga. And I thought that that was a really cool idea. So obviously, after someone gets murdered, the herbivores become very defensive, especially around their carnivore classmates. And this is where we meet Legoshi. This was, I'm sure, intentional, but in every single panel he is made to look like the absolute creepiest person on the planet, which I thought was hilarious, especially having watched the anime first, and I know who Legoshi is and how he acts and feels about things. I thought it was so good, because it just showed in the world how people perceive him. Because to other people, like, a big burly dude that like stares intently at people because he cares comes across as like a big creeper dude. Tem had a crush on a girl named Els, and Els, with her friends, theorized that Legoshi is the murderer because he was staring at her very creepily, I might add. But then he tracks her down as she's walking home in the middle of the night, because boys don't understand how weird that is, especially teenage boys. He like pulls scissors out of her hands that she's using to try and protect herself, and like doesn't say anything until he like hands her this letter. It was so weird. Who would do that? Like, but at the same time, it's so relatable, because I can see a teenage boy like thinking that this is okay and not understanding how a girl would feel about that situation. And that's what I really love about this manga/anime. It's just so relatable. I feel like the characters are so realistic, and the choices that they made are so high school. Moving on to chapter 2, To Stroke One's Fur the Wrong Way. There's a little more world development in this chapter. We see Mark gets a bunch of letters from home telling him that it's not safe, I guess, and asking him to return home, and you see similar things with the other herbivores. They are feeling extremely unsafe in the situation, and their families are concerned about them because they really didn't do much about this murder. Like, classes didn't stop and like nothing changed. They like cleaned out the auditorium where he was killed, and like that was it. So I thought that was kind of weird, because if a murder happens at a school, they usually shut down classes for a couple of days. But again, you have to keep in mind that these are not human characters, and a lot of people like to see them as human because they're like furries or whatever, but they are, Paru writes them in a very animal way. They're animals that can talk, and they act like animals for the most part. It's really interesting. They're teenage animals, and in this chapter we are introduced to one of my personal favorite characters, Rui. So online you might see Rui spelled with an R or an L, and that is because, if you didn't know, in Japanese there isn't really an R or an L sound. It's kind of in between. It's usually read as an R, like ramen, but the sound itself is actually in between an R and an L. It's like the. It's really, yeah, just so you know. So I prefer Rui because I think that's a little more accurate. I think R is a little more accurate to how those syllables are spelled and sound in Japanese. But obviously she meant to call him Louis, which is like a preppy French name, because that makes sense for his character. So whichever way is fine. I'm gonna say Rui because that's just I don't know, that's just how I read it. And we meet him because Kai the mongoose comes in, and he was a part of the actors team, and I'm not sure if he was understudying for Tem, but he assumed that he was going to be getting Tem's role. So he rolled in, ready to go, thought he was hot stuff, like assumed he was getting the role, and then he comes in and he sees Zoe is getting fit for the costume, so he goes to confront Rui. So Rui immediately puts him in his place. It's so beautiful to see, and I think that this was a really great introduction to his character. He is absolutely no nonsense, has no patience whatsoever for ineptitude, and he just tells him straight up, you know, Kai, you've been acting for a while, and all I can remember about you are the mistakes you made. So you know what? You're on the crew. Sorry, support team, you're out. And I loved that. It was so good. And Legoshi is there for all of this. He had been talking with Rui about, I'm assuming, lighting, because that's what Legoshi does for the drama club, is the lighting. And Kai becomes enraged because he's been straight up roasted by Rui, and he throws a punch, which Legoshi blocks with his arm like a true badass, and then he intimidates Kai into leaving, which Rui is like kind of impressed by, I guess, at this point. I guess they probably don't have a ton of interaction between Legoshi and Rui before this point, but Rui is impressed by this, and he was like, you bared your fangs to stop a fight? Like, cool. Like, I've never seen anyone do that. Like, badass. Can I count on your help for some other shit? And Legoshi feels like he can't say no, so he agrees to help Rui and be a lookout for him and Zoe as they run lines. So that leads us into chapter 3, which is A Disturbance in the Mist. This is the scene where Legoshi is standing outside watching the door to the auditorium as Rui and Zoe go over their lines. Which, again, I think this is the night after someone was murdered in the auditorium. I'm not sure if it's only one auditorium or they have multiple, but it seems kind of risky, and I guess that's why they brought a wolf with them. But, like, what if it was him that was the murderer, though? Like, I don't... High school, am I right? It doesn't make sense, but those are the choices that they made. And if that doesn't remind you of your high school experience, I am jealous that you went to school with some smarter people than I did. And then at this point, it is misty outside. He can barely see anything, but he notices a rabbit, and he notices it by scent and by instinct. And again, he instinctively pounces onto this rabbit, which is so cool and scary. And for me, this was the point where it changed from me seeing these characters as humans that just look like animals to me understanding that these are animal characters that can speak and interact the way that humans do. So he jumps on her, grabs her, and then it cuts off right there to go to the next chapter. So that next chapter is chapter 4, A Moderately Bad Day, Even for a Bunny Rabbit. This is Haru's chapter in this volume. So Haru is an incredibly dynamic and relatable character, I think, for a lot of women and just a lot of people in general. Chapter 4 shows at the beginning that he is holding her and she is wishing that he would just eat her whole and leave nothing left. And that is very, very deep in an otherwise pretty light-hearted manga, other than the verbal beratings and fights that happen in the first couple of chapters. Throughout Haru's day, we see her getting bullied prominently by a harlequin rabbit named Mizuchi, right? Yeah, she's a big dodo brain, and I don't like her, and she's a mean lady. Basically, Mizuchi is like, you kissed my boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. And then Haru was like, yeah, sorry, I didn't know he had a girlfriend. Also, your boyfriend kissed me, so, go yell at him? I don't know. It's just, like, really, really awful, like, snide, girly poop, and she, like, dumps a bucket of water on Haru, and it's all very, very, very sad. And Haru takes it like a champ, goes to the bathroom, dries off her clothes, and just thinks about her life and the fact that people don't like her, and all of this extremely relatable stuff, especially for a teenager in that same situation. I think that most people on the planet have dealt with some form of bullying in the past. Obviously, this is pretty extreme. She dumped a bucket of water on her. And then we roll into chapter 5, named Hey, It's Us, and that is where they jump right back into Legoshi, like, holding Haru. So in this scene, Legoshi has some pretty extensive inner dialogue of, like, angel on one shoulder, devil on the other, just fighting with his morality versus his true nature, versus his feelings and the things that he wants and his physical desires. Again, high school, am I right? Ooh, dealing with a changing body, going through puberty, and, like, trying to understand your urges and emotions and all those things. I just found it was such a smart way to represent that in an animal form versus puberty and people. But I think that this was trying to show that, and how we can hurt people with our actions even if they're right for us. That's deep. Yikes. Beastar has changed me. Oh my god. And then Zoe runs out and calls for Legoshi, and Legoshi lets go of Haru and she runs away. So we find out that Rui has hurt himself by falling off of the stage while practicing with Zoe, and that's not good because Rui is the main actor. He is the main character of the story of Alder, which is the story of the Grim Reaper, and this isn't good. Rui brushes it all off. He's like, I'm gonna be fine. When showtime comes, I'm gonna be on stage. You don't know me. I am not some victim that needs your help. And that is something that comes up a lot with Rui, is he doesn't want to feel helpless, but ultimately he knows that he is, and that is obviously very frustrating for him. You see it in the scene with Kai, Legoshi, and Rui, where Kai throws a punch at Rui and he is physically taken aback. You can see the shock on his face. You can see the fear in his eyes. That's not who he portrays himself as. That's not the person that he shows to the world. I think that's a part of himself that he really hates. Again, relatable content. High school, teenagers, puberty. I'm a badass on the outside, but inside, I am so scared. It's just so good. I don't understand how anyone cannot like this stuff. Next we go into chapter 6, which is A Star Among Beasts. At this point we are in a cafeteria setting, and a fight breaks out between two carnivores in the cafeteria. Legoshi is just fighting within himself, like, how am I going to stop them? He gets up, he's like, stop! And then that instigates a fight with these two other carnivores. And so it shifts to Legoshi's inner dialogue, and he's like, how am I gonna lose this fight? Because he's like twice the size of both of these other guys, and he's like, how am I going to make this believable that I lose? Not like, how do I not hurt this guy, like, how do I beat this guy? It's, how do I lose but make it believable? And then Rui steps in and he stops the carnivores by basically telling them, like, you're better than this, like, you're a piece of shit. Is this all you're capable of? Is, like, gnashing your teeth at people and, like, oh, you're scary. And it was just so Rui. He comes in and just verbally berates someone until they lose all motivation to fight. So I think that's funny because I've known people like that. That they come in, guns a-blazing with their words, and everyone around them is just kind of like, ugh. Unlike my reaction to that, where I was just kind of like, okay, Rui, like, whatever. Legoshi goes, oh, like, Rui is so cool, and, like, everybody idolizes him, and he's gonna be the next Beastar. Just shows that he totally idolizes Rui, and I think that's really cute. And then Rui turns around and he's like, you were trying to think about how you're gonna lose that fight, weren't you? Like, why are you like this? I hate carnivores like you, all this stuff. And it's just so mean because Legoshi at the same time is thinking about how much he idolizes Rui and how impressed he is by him. And Rui at the same time is like, you're the worst type of carnivore. You try to pretend like you're weak. Final chapter in this book is Wildlife Sanctuary, level 100. So this is the point where Rui kind of loses his marbles a little bit. At this point, they are now practicing, and Rui kind of goes off the deep end because people are like, oh, you're not moving right. And he's like, you know what? I'm perfect. And his inner dialogue is so cringy, but so, like, I believe it so much. He's like, nobody else even matters. Like, I'm the only person that matters. As long as I get on the stage and I do the performance right, these other people are insignificant. And, like, yikes. What a thing to think about other people, am I right? I don't know, can't relate to me thinking that I'm better than everyone else and I'm the only important person in the room. But it just makes his character so dynamic. He's so interesting. He's so interesting because he puts on this face like he wants the world to be connected and he wants everyone to make themselves better, but in his heart, he doesn't believe that anyone could ever measure up to him. And he just thinks he's better than everyone anyway. So it's kind of like, it's conflicting ideologies a little bit. And then they realize that for the set they need roses. So they send Mark and Legoshi to go to the gardening club to acquire some roses to finish their pretty set for their play. And when they get to the gardening club, Legoshi sees Haru and immediately recognizes her by smell. And obviously says in his mind the most dramatic thing out of this first book, which is, this is the garden of temptation. Yikes! Oh, this book makes me cringe so much. A lot of people who have seen the anime, at least in my circle, are like, it's so cringy, like it's furry and weird. And I'm like, yeah, like it's cringy. Like, have you ever been to high school before? And, like, this is cringe in a good way. I'm cringing, but I am so completely entertained. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it ends at this point where he sees Haru and realizes who she is. And, yeah, it stops right there. Perfect way to end Volume 1, in my opinion. It's a very good cliffhanger to end on. It's pretty dramatic. We want to know if she remembers him. We want to know if he is gonna tell her that he tried to kill her the other night. It's just, oh, it's bad. Before we go, let's talk just a little bit about the three main characters that were introduced in this first volume. First one I want to talk about is Rui. Again, we see him. He's very proud. He's very jealous. He wants to be a Beastar, but he thinks he's better than everyone else, which seems like how they explained what a Beastar is, that would be like counterintuitive, because a Beastar is someone who's supposed to be able to be a representative of animal kind in general, carnivore and herbivore, and someone like a man for the people, basically, an animal for the animals. And if he thinks he's better than everyone else and everyone needs to work harder, then I don't think he can accomplish that. So that's interesting. And yeah, he's super duper proud. He tells people all the time when they're not being good enough, which is a little annoying if you ask me. And his inner dialogue is that he's better than everyone else, of course. And at the same time, he's jealous. You can see by the way he talks to Legoshi about his power and how he's not using it correctly, that Rui is just very sad that he was born as a stag and he's not able to be the most powerful, even though that's how he feels inside, or not how he feels inside, but how he wants to be perceived by others and how he wants to be. That's his idolization, is to be powerful. So I think that's a very cool character. Haru was, in this first volume, very sad but relatable. People can really relate to feeling a sense of not belonging, feeling like everything you do is wrong, feeling like people hate you, and feeling like your life is worthless. I think that most people can say that they have felt that way about themselves at one point or another. So I think that this character, and hopefully the development of this character, is going to resonate with some people. So that's awesome. I think that she was a great inclusion in this manga, and I think her character deserves a lot of love because she's actually a really nice lady. I don't know. Finally, let's talk about my beautiful boy, Legoshi. He is so dynamic. He is quiet and introverted, but at the same time, he knows that he is strong and he knows that he can win every fight that he comes in. So it's like a Hulk situation. He spends his life avoiding the fight because he knows he's gonna win. My god. And also, he just doesn't want to fight anyone. He doesn't want to see people get hurt. And he's just an edgelord, baby. Oh god. He brings me back to high school when... Let's get real. Because if you were like me, at some point you were like, I could be a vampire. Like, I am a vampire. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm a vampire already. So this is just... He reminded me of that. Of being a teenager and being like super edgy in your head and like, oh, stay away from me, I'm dangerous, and like, I'm just gonna hurt you, and like, oh my god, it was so good. It's so good. I love this manga. I love this manga so much. I don't think I'm ever gonna stop loving it. The anime was amazing. The manga is better, but they both follow the same plot, so I'm gonna consume both of them often. Anyways, that's enough of me talking for now. Thank you so much for watching. I am a new channel to YouTube and I am trying to grow a little bit. So if you liked what you saw, please feel free to subscribe to my channel and like this video if you liked what you saw. So yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you read Beastars because it's worth it. I'm telling you, it's good. See ya!